everyone. In this presentation and video, we are going to present our idea about what we think Scotch whiskey product and India. Before we dive more detail in this interesting case and topic, let us know more beforehand about the product, about Scotch whiskey. Now let's start about the introduction. What is Scotch whiskey? Scotch whiskey is basically a type of alcoholic drink that are made from barley. If you know beer, we can say that Scotch whiskey and beer is like a long distance cousin. So that is basically Scotch whiskey. Okay, we know what is Scotch whiskey. So how to make Scotch whiskey? The process of making Scotch whiskey in a simplified way, as you can see from the graph and the slide, there are about 6 steps. This step is kind of the same with all other fermentation drink, but I will highlight one of the 6 steps, which is spirit safe. Spirit safe is basically a quality check done by the expert to check whether the drink is fulfilled all the requirements to be called Scotch whiskey, which is kind of cool. We get to know that Scotch whiskey have a high and traditional standard of making a product. Okay. Okay, with the intricate making process and strong tradition, where is this product come from? It come, as the name said, it come from Scotland, which is on the British Isle. After knowing general idea of what is Scotch whiskey, now let's start have some interesting fact about our product. First fact is, Scotch whiskey can only be made and distilled, as the name said, in Scotland. Yes, it is by the law. Law said that all whiskey that has the name Scotch in it basically needs to be made on Scotland. Moving on to the next fact, there are over 130 distilleries scattered around Scotland, which is kind of many, right? The next fact is basically the minimum alcohol is about 40%. 40% minimum is kind of the same as rum. Rum is one of the most popular alcohol in India, so we can say that there is some similarity between Scotch whiskey and rum. The next fact is the barrel must be matured in an oak barrel. Wow, about 3 years. 3 years is kind of long. It's longer than wine, I think. The final fact is there are only about 3 main ingredients, which is malted barley, yeast, and water. Moving on, we move to the one of the most important fact in our case here. Scotch whiskey export is basically down. The export of Scotch whiskey at 2019 from the 2018 is down. Now at the 2020, the export is decreasing again, which is, as you can see in the slide, the export value is down to 1.1 billion pound, which is kind of high. But we also need to know that at the time there is a pandemic going around. So we can say that in 2 years, Scotch whiskey performance, as I previously said, is underperformed. Moving on, we can see at the regional export. The regional export gives us a more detailed information. In the top 3 continents, as you can see, all the top 3 here, European Union, Asia, Oceania, and North America, all of it down at the 2020, which kinda, well, at the time of pandemic, many things is down. Okay, moving on to the large export destination. As you can see, there is France, USA, India. The number 1 export is to France, then to USA, and then to India. Most of this is down, but France, as you can see, up. Wow, to France is up. From this data, we can see that India is the top 3 client for the Scotch whiskey. So we can see that India is important for Scotch whiskey business and needs to be improved for increased market value. So basically, India is really important for Scotch whiskey. Now, after we know about the product, which is Scotch whiskey, let's talk about our case here, our client case here, which is Scotch Whiskey Association. So the background of our case here from our client wants to increase their market share. They particularly wants to increase Scotch whiskey in India. So when we talk about expanding, we need to know the location, in this case India. We need to know some information to get prepared better and use that information for our strategical reference. One of the things is, like, for example, population. Let's start from population. India is the second highest population in the world, around 1.4 billion people. From this information, we can know that there is a huge opportunity here. From this information, we can try to separate and analyze what those 1.4 billion people are for our market segment information. Like for example, I give you the legal drinking age are 21. Previously I said we can use that 1.4 billion for our reference. One of the things that we can use from the population data is we can separate how many percent India population that are legal in terms of drinking. So it's kind of important that we need to analyze more about this population and try to analyze it in a more micro detail. Okay, religion. Religion is important here for our strategical information. We need to know whether the religion prohibits drinking alcohol or not. After knowing that, we can use that information to see the percentage number in India. We can analyze that into a much more micro detail. For example, we can analyze which state in India have the most population density with the religion that have prohibited from drinking alcohol. So from that information, we can avoid it that place and lower the cost of distribution.
Okay, so now I am going to explain about the threats if we are going to expand our market to India. So for now, there are currently no big threats coming from domestic or international companies because United Spirits, which is owned by Diageo, which is also a member of Scotch Whisky Association, is currently the biggest spirits in India with a market cap of approximately 48,000 crore rupees. But there is probably one possible competitor from the domestic companies, which is United Breweries, because they currently have a market cap of approximately 38,000 crore rupees. But recently they are facing some difficulties after their chairman was accused with money laundering, misappropriation, and being a willful defaulter. So I think there is no big threats in the near future. And next, we have macroeconomic strength that is happening in India in the past few years. So in India, 40% to 50% of all males and 1% of all females consume alcohol based on the 2015 data. And 62% of the drinkers are classified as light drinkers, 29% as moderate drinkers, and 9% as hard drinkers. So this drinking habits is influenced mostly by the Western culture, and actually the spirits industry in India is a well-developed industry with around 8,200 to 8,500 crore rupees, and the past growth of spirits industry is around 12% CAGR per annum. And also the spirits that are currently mostly available in India are particularly brown spirits like whiskey, rum, and brandy because they account for over 75% of the market. And lastly, the market size of spirits have grown considerably from around 20 million cases in 1999 to 84 million cases in 2011. Not bad.
Okay, so next, our team will elaborate on how SWA can achieve organic growth through our possible strategies. Such elaboration will be done through Ansoff growth model, which will help us answer two key questions: which products to offer, and to which markets do we serve these products. There are 4 different strategies according to Ansoff growth matrix, which differentiates based on the characteristics of markets and products proposed in the solutions. In the first strategy of market penetration, key steps include adjusting the price to appeal to the budget-conscious population of India, or even create a slightly different products which suits them, increase promotion of the products, and later on even acquire local established competitors as SWA's satellite companies. Some examples of market penetration include the aforementioned pricing and product creation, supported by point of sale, surrogate, targeted, and entertainment industry advertisements, along with SWA's sponsorship deals. Moving forward in product development, key steps include developing new products which can be done by targeting specialty products and supporting with partnerships with established competitors in India. Several examples of this strategy include formulating a chai-infused whiskey, which is a specialty Indian product catering to their habit of drinking tea, making halal whiskey for the general demography but targeting the Muslim population, and strengthened with a partnership with Seagram to create Scotch variant of Royal Stag.
Okay, now the third one is market development. Market development means empowering our market power. Some of the things that we can do is changing or entering new market segment, target which Indian states that has the most possibility for growth. In a more detailed way, another example as we can see in the slide is, first we can do market research. Second, try to target more budget-friendly market. Well, basically like the previous way, which is lowering the price. The third one is creating something to make finding SWA easily found in India. So basically, if people want to find SWA, they can more easily to find it. Okay, the next one is diversification. Diversification means we need to be open-minded to create something new. Some of the things that we can do is creating sparkling whiskey. Well, it's kind of good, I think. And the second one is custom-made order whiskey. So that is basically some of the things that we can do from the unsolved model. Okay, we already know from the unsolved model how to grow Scotch whiskey in India. But is there any other example of potential strategic option based on the unsolved model? Yes, there is, which is social media marketing. We live in the age of digital and influencer. We can use this as advantage to our product, which is Scotch whiskey. Okay, there are about 400 million active social media users in India. The social media market in India dominated by this company. So from this information, we can try to make a team for social media and analyze of each of this information of the social media and try to enact a plan for growing Scotch whiskey. Like for example, we try to do marketing from this social media. So, in a summary, social media is very important.
Okay, now I am going to analyze the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So, of course, the threat must be the competitors from the local and international companies. And here you can see the list of competitors from local and international. Of course, the most possible competitor, as I said before, is probably United Breweries. Never mind that. Now let's talk about strengths. So in strengths, we have strong global presence. We are the number one whiskey brand in the world, and also whiskey is the most popular alcohol in India. We have a strong Scottish heritage, and the growth in the industry is quite high, around 12% CAGR in the past years. Next, we have weaknesses. So in weaknesses, we are currently having a decrease in production in 2020 because of COVID. We have no local Indian brewery, and if we want to have a local Indian brewery, it will have a high cost, and we may face many regulation. And lastly, we have slow innovation in the industry in India. But we have also some opportunities. We have the opportunities to cater to organic and sustainable trend of millennials, develop digitization forms of social drinking, and also offer lower ABV percent and also 0% alcohol whiskey to cater wider range of consumer. And lastly, the threats. local competitors higher ease of doing business and burden some regulation and barriers, possible restriction of alcohol in the Indian market, and also increasing health conscious lifestyle, because nowadays people uh, are more conscious about their health, which is not good for our uh, product. All right, now next, so we are going to see the whiskey brand competition analysis. So basically, uh, Scotch Whisky Association have some advantages like cost advantages, global exports, and Scottish whiskey, because the other brands like Royal Stag, McDowell, and Imperial Blue, they cannot be considered as a Scottish whiskey, because to be considered as Scottish whiskey, they have to be made in Scotland, and we are the only brand that have that authenticity. So good for us, but what's bad is we don't actually have a local brewery, because we have to make it in Scotland. So that's about it.
In terms of current brand positioning amongst other top alcohol brands, SWA ranks the highest in both alcohol content and price, but lacks market share with only 2%. The other three whiskey brands also contains higher alcohol contents, but competing in the same price ranges. Meanwhile, Kingfisher specializes in beer, having the lowest price and alcohol contents, and this positioning analysis should be taken into consideration when SWA decides which strategies to run and which brand positioning it would aim for.
So next, which demographic SWA should primarily target in terms of their expert and strategic efforts? So the first thing to note is that Scotch whisky is an alcoholic beverage because it is going through a maturation process. Meanwhile, India is known as the largest Hindu populated country in the world, but they also have several regions that are consisted of Muslims or Sikh majority population, where it is prohibited by their religions to consume alcohol. So the following states should be less prioritized by the SWA. The first one is Jammu and Kashmir. 60% of the population are Muslims, like Shadwib, 96% Muslims, Punjab, 70% Sikh, and Assam, 34% Muslims. By focusing their expert and strategic effort more on the Christians or Hindu majority states in India, SWA may relieve some pressure from the fuzzy state-related regulation, taxes, and restrictions. The second thing to note is that SWA should target the emerging middle class, where more people now have more money to be spent, not excluding whiskey. Imagine men and women, young professionals from the successful pharmaceutical sectors or Indian IT sectors who are often going to fancy restaurants, hang out a lot, doing lots of shopping, and they try their best to keep up with the metropolitan way of life. They may now have the ability to buy the Scotch whisky at a higher price than the cheap Indian whisky. So aside from religion, SWA should focus their expert effort on states with rising numbers of middle class. Middle income class in India is defined as people who have a consumption from $2 to $10 a day, whereas the lower middle class has a consumption of $4 to $6 a day and still have a third of their income for discretionary spendings. But we think it is appropriate to set the middle class here to be analyzed is with the consumption of $6 to $10 a day, or above $2,190 annually. So the following states are having lots of middle income populations, such as Goa, Sikkim, Delhi, Chandigarh, Haryana, Karnataka, Puducherry, Kerala, Telangana, until the Arunachal Pradesh. So next, how should SWA deal with the fuzzy Indian import requirements, tariff, and restrictions? So first thing first, SWA can pressure the UK government to have an imminent free trade agreement with India, since they are well-organized organizations. Also, it might be possible to do that since Scotch whisky is an important industry supporting the UK and Scotland economy. Scotch whisky accounts for nearly one quarter of all British food and drink exports on an annual basis. Also, Scotch whisky contributes more than double than life sciences to the Scottish economy, supporting more than 42,000 jobs across the UK, including 10,500 people directly in Scotland and 7,000 in rural communities. If free trade agreement can be agreed, it will give benefits to both countries. UK and Scotland can export Scotch whisky while India can export their commodities. Remember that Indian whisky is made from distilled sugar. The argument that stated sugar farmers and other sectors which heavily support and dependent on the Indian whisky industry that may be harmed by the reduced tariff is no longer relevant since they can now focusing on directly exporting their commodities or shift their focus to support other industries in India that are intensively selling their goods to the UK. And then because there are lots of Scotch whisky, fake Scotch whisky in India, maybe some customer know differences, but new customer segments from the emerging middle class who drink to gain social status, for example, then they might not know the taste differences, which one is fake or real. Thus, it is better for India to eliminate tariff so real Scotch whisky is affordable. Then, SWA and the UK governments also can give more leniency toward the Indian whisky, which is made from distilled sugar, not the standardized patented formula. Thus, this Indian whisky cannot be easily sold at the UK or EU. And by giving more leniency, this would allow this Indian whisky to be exported to the UK, thus would allow them to have a new big market in the UK. In terms of bribery, we do not recommend such action to be taken, since it is better to pay a fuzzy yet legal tariff than doing so. It is better to calculate the cost of exporting whiskey to various states with different legal tax or regulations than calculating the bribery to officials, which may not be the same all the time. Maybe there are also some official conducted a sophisticated scheme where they demanded a certain fixed amount of commission to smoothen the export procedures, but there are still the possibility of future litigation costs that might occur if the scheme is uncovered. While waiting for the free trade agreement to be passed, it is best for SWA to focus on their export or strategic effort to their niche customer segments.
Now, we have reached our last part of our idea and proposal for our client. In this last part, we will talk about the conclusion of benefit from our previous idea and proposal. Okay, the first one is we will use answer growth strategy model. The benefit of using this, we can have the foundation of mapping our strategy to Growth Scotch Whisky Association in India. Second one is using our creativity to use social media as our advantage. Of course, you know the benefit of using social media. Okay, the third one is competition analysis. By doing this, we get more prepared and knowing the competition in India and knowing some obstacles that we will deal in India. The fourth one is targeted analysis. Targeted analysis is important so we can know what market is potential for our product and what market segment should we avoid to reduce the total cost. Last solution is handling fuzzy tariff. As previously mentioned by the proposed idea previously about handling tariff, Scotch Whisky Association can be more prepared well enough if some unwanted occurrence may happen. So they can use some of our previous idea to handle some of this fuzzy tariff. So that's basically our case analysis and solution for our client.